In this first lesson, we're going to talk about leadership roles. In the field, we're often highly dependent on our fellow team members for success, support, and safety. In this context, emphasis is often placed on the field team leader or principal investigator as the person expected to manage the group's well-being, its scientific success, and safety. The point that we want to make here is that leadership is not the responsibility of one sole person, but should rather be thought of as a task that is shared among all team members. You've probably experienced some of this dynamic. Whether it's that small act of emotional support offered to a struggling colleague, or someone sharing important information with the team members during a decision-making process. Or maybe it's that time when a colleague intervened when someone made a joke that unintentionally hurt you. We will go over 4 different leadership roles to give you some vocabulary to identify and understand these different roles. We will also explore how these leadership roles contribute to group dynamics and team safety. So let's look at these 4 leadership roles. We'll explore them in more detail in a minute, but generally, we can distinguish designated leadership, active followership, peer leadership, and self-leadership. It's important to remember that any team member, not just the designated field team leader, will be stepping in and out of these roles many times and will often occupy more than one role at a time. Much of this we do unconsciously, but it's helpful to recognize that all these roles constitute forms of leadership that help keep the team on track. So let's jump in and take a closer look. The designated leader is the architect and guardian of the group process. For any tricky, complex, or potentially risky activity, we want to have a designated leader. But even designated leadership happens at many levels. For a scientific project as a whole, this is usually the principal investigator. Depending on the location of the fieldwork, it might also be the captain of a research vessel, the director of a field station, or, if we have to deal with lots of tricky terrain, a mountain guide. Plus, anyone can become the designated leader for subtasks, like when you're tasked for cooking dinner with the team. Or you might be the person in the team that is familiar with a certain instrument, making you the designated leader for conducting those measurements. Being the designated leader does not mean that you cannot delegate certain tasks or ask for help, nor does it mean that you have to make all decisions top-down. Oftentimes, multiple designated leaders are active within a group at the same time, like when tasks get delegated or different designated leaders have different areas of expertise. Whether you're the ship captain, the mountain guide, or are in charge of the group's dinner, at the end of the day, the designated leaders are the ones who are responsible for the outcome and accountable for the team's actions. The second leadership role is active followership. It constitutes leadership through informed participation. Active followers support the leadership of others by participating in an active manner that includes giving input or seeking clarity, respecting the plan made by a leader, and helping out wherever necessary. This can also mean that you support and follow a course of action that might be different than what you would have chosen to do if you were the designated leader. For example, your project lead may have decided that you will use your last day in the field to survey a stretch of a braided river near camp. Because you are really interested in the channelized part of the river a bit further from camp, you weren't too excited about this decision. As an active follower, however, you support the decision of the principal investigator, and you share some observations about big tree branches that are blocking certain channels in the braid plane to make sure nobody gets into harm's way by floating down one of those channels. You can already see here how these leadership roles can have group safety implications. If group members don't embrace their roles as active followers, critical safety information may not be shared. Our third role is peer leadership. Peer leadership is the form of leadership that comes into play during tasks that require all hands on deck. Peer leadership means that everyone chips in and ensures that the necessary tasks get done. This could be the gear preparation before an expedition, setting up camp, or cleaning up after a large field campaign. In peer leadership, each person sees what needs to be done and does it without any hierarchy. This can be crucial for positive team culture. Think of how different a team feels if the principal investigator just sits around while the rest of the team cleans up the expedition gear, versus when everyone lends a hand for tasks that simply don't require a hierarchy. It's easy to see how peer leadership builds trust among team members. This leadership role also comes into play at much smaller scales, when any team member, regardless of their official role, helps out peers with tasks or issues at hand. Finally, self-leadership is leadership through self-care and by bringing to the team who you are as a person. Self-leadership is about how we influence others and the vibes we bring to a group, regardless of the position we hold. Whether you are that good listener, the crafty fixer of all things, maybe the person who always has the necessary facts ready, or knows just when to tell a joke to bring up everyone's mood. This is you, whatever you bring to the team, that makes the team whole. Additionally, in order to support the group as a whole, we also need to take care of ourselves and our personal needs and communicate these to others. In that sense, self-leadership also involves self-advocacy. You need to be aware of and articulate your own goals and expectations rather than blindly following the herd and being disappointed that you didn't get what you wanted. This kind of leadership is required of each and every team member at all times, regardless of any official role or position. Watch these next videos to assess how the presence or lack of these leadership roles affects the group culture.
Good morning, everyone. It's a beautiful day to start our field work here. There are some tasks that we have to get done before we can start our measurements, so I just wanted to start by assigning those. Pat and Alex, would you be so kind as to go over there and unload and kind of like sort through all of the geophysical equipment? And then Charlie and Skylar, could you all maybe go in that direction and kind of set up a space for cooking? That way it's kind of separate from where we'll be taking the measurements. That's all I have for now, but just report back here when you're done, and that's all for now. So carry on and see you later.
Okay, let's go ahead and get this over with. You okay?
Yeah.
The kitchen stuff should just be over here. It should just take us just a second.
Well, that was easy.
This is gonna take a while.
Good morning, everyone. It's a beautiful day out here for starting our fieldwork. There are some tasks that we need to take care of before we can start our measurements though, so let's think about how we can handle those. We have to unpack and unload all of the geophysical equipment. I also think it wouldn't be a bad idea if we set up the kitchen just so we don't have to do that at the end of like a long day when we're kind of tired. What I was kind of thinking is that since the geophysical equipment is kind of heavy, Pat, Alex, Sam, and myself, we could all go set that up together. And then Skylar and Charlie, would you be willing to go set up the kitchen?
Those boxes are pretty heavy over there. I think you guys could benefit from possibly having an extra set of hands. Charlie, do you mind possibly doing the kitchen stuff by yourself, or I can switch with that?
Yeah, either way, that sounds fine. I think it makes more sense for me to do it myself so you can help everyone else.
Thanks for that suggestion, Skylar. That does sound like a better plan. Is that okay with everyone else if we did that?
Actually, I don't want to complicate things, but I was wondering, I've been dealing with some back problems lately, and I was thinking maybe I could take care of the kitchen task instead. Would that be okay with everyone?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really glad you brought that up. I definitely don't want you lifting all of that because it is really heavy.
Totally. I don't have a strong preference either way, so it certainly sounds like it makes sense to do it this way.
Thank you so much. You're so nice. If I finish before y'all, I'll make sure to brew some tea and coffee for everyone to share.
You may want to watch the video more than once, but try to identify the specific behaviors that constitute the 4 different leadership roles and describe how they impacted group culture. Can you see how the lack of certain behaviors could have led to health and safety concerns down the road? We hope that this exploration of leadership roles has illustrated how it can be helpful to think of leadership as a shared responsibility. Hopefully, you can appreciate that all team members contribute substantially to the success of a team, and that the leadership responsibility does not lie solely with the designated leader. In the next lesson, we'll discuss different types of leadership styles.